Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm going to be introducing to you Vicon's new Valerus PoE NVR, our turnkey VMS solution. Our agenda today will include a product and specifications overview. We'll take a look at system architecture. We'll follow that up with showing you how quick and easy it is to deploy. We'll talk about applications and solutions, and we'll wrap up with a quick summary. First and foremost, it's a simple and easy to deploy turnkey system because it comes to you fully configured as an all-in-one Valerus VMS system. All you have to do is simply apply and activate the included 16-channel core license for Vicon IP cameras, and then just discover those cameras, add them to the system, and configure them however you want to. The system itself is easily reconfigurable to be an NVR only if you wanted to add it to an existing Valerus system. Now, what makes this appliance different is that it has a built-in 16-port PoE Plus switch with a power bank that supports a total of 240 watts. So let's understand exactly what this means. The switch supports both PoE 15 watt or PoE Plus 30 watt on any of its ports, as long as you don't exceed the 240 watt total power bank. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. In example 1, we have 12 PoE devices and 2 PoE Plus devices. The 12 PoE devices at 15 watts equal 180 watts, and the 2 PoE Plus devices at 30 watts equals 60 watts. So 180 plus 60 is 240 watts. We've now used the total power bank. In example number 2, we'll have 8 PoE devices and 4 PoE Plus. 8 times 15 is 120, 4 times 30 is 120, and we've consumed our 240 watt power bank. Now obviously, if all 16 devices are PoE only, 16 times 15 is 240 watts. The system is not limited to just 16 cameras. It has a 16-port PoE switch, but it can manage and record up to 70 cameras or 190 megabits per second of throughput to hard drive. You'll have to do the mathematics on that depending on the camera resolutions and frame rates that you're actually trying to record. It is configurable storage-wise up to 24 terabytes. We do that with 2 locking removable drive bays, and we're going to offer this to you in either 4, 8, 12, 16, or 24 terabyte total storage configurations. The system is plug and play with the built-in DHCP server for the 16 PoE ports that are built into the device. And of course, you can add additional cameras up to your license or up to the 70 camera 190 megabits per second throughput limitations by connecting to the system's LAN port along with additional networking gear or switches. Let's take a quick look at the front panel of this device. The first thing that we're going to notice is that we have the 2 locking removable drive bays. We're going to provide you with 2 keys, and there's also a power LED on the front panel. But the real work comes on the back side of the system. On the rear panel, we'll start off with our power connection. It uses a standard D cord which is supplied, and there is a power toggle switch. It's not an on-off switch, it is a toggle switch. When the system is powered through the power connection and the toggle switch is toggled to off, you might be a little confused because the fans will keep running and the PoE ports and NICs will all be powered. So even when the system's off, the PoE side of the house and the network side of the house stays powered on. And that makes perfect sense because let's imagine that you're doing a system upgrade or a Windows upgrade and the system has to shut down. Well, you certainly don't want all your cameras powering off. So if you need to power the system down in totality, then you'll need to remove the power cord. For monitor connections, we support both a DVI and HDMI connection. There are 2 additional network connections, one being our WAN connection and one being our LAN connection. As we're looking at the unit from the rear, The WAN connection is on the left. The LAN connection is on the right. Underneath of that, you have 4 USB 3.0 connections, as well as audio in and audio out. And on the right side, we have our PoE ports, ports 1 through 8 and ports 9 through 16 as they're marked. These are your plug-and-play ports because these have a built-in DHCP server to address the devices connected to these ports. Last but not least, there are some I/O connections on the back of the unit. We're going to ship this to you with a piece of yellow tape over that because we currently don't support those ports. Now, when it comes to architecture, we talked about this being an all-in-one system. So let's go ahead and build the system from scratch. We're going to start off with our PoE NVR, and we're going to need to add to that a monitor, a mouse, and a keyboard. Those are going to be supplied by you, or you can purchase them from us. Next, we're going to add our cameras. In this case, I'm adding 16 PoE cameras. I've got 8 little mini domes connected to ports 1 through 8. I've got 8 fixed cameras connected to ports 9 through 16. And as we mentioned earlier, if I need more than 16 cameras, I'll upgrade my license, but I can take the LAN connection to additional networking gear for additional camera connections. Just as a reminder, the system comes default configured. The LAN port does not supply DHCP addressing because most likely when you're connecting to your local area network, you've already got a DHCP server, and we don't want to have conflicts by both devices trying to dole out DHCP addresses. So at this point, you have an all-in-one system. You can actually configure, manage, and view cameras straight from the PoE NVR. But there's nothing to stop you from adding a user workstation or connecting from an existing workstation, laptop, whatever, using the Valerus web client. You also have the option to use this system as a Valerus NVR only. Now, of course, this will mean that you have an existing Valerus system, and that Valerus system is connected to the internet or local area network, depending on the actual application. We're going to reconfigure the PoE NVR to be an NVR only, and it's really simple to do, and I'm going to show you later how it's done. We'll still go ahead and connect our local cameras to it, and of course we'll need to make that internet, LAN, or WAN connection so that this device can be managed by the existing Valerus system. You would simply add it to the existing Valerus system just like you would add any other NVR to a Valerus VMS. Now I can still add a local monitor, keyboard, and mouse for localized viewing. Now it's time for us to see how quick and easy it is to deploy the new Valerus PoE NVR. I've made my power connections to the box. I've got my cameras ready to go. They're out of the box at factory defaults. I've made my network runs. So everything is ready to go, and when I power the box up, I'm going to encounter a Windows login screen. The default user account is VII, or capital Victor India India, and the default password is 1234. Now once you've logged in, you'll come to the desktop screen, but it's highly recommended that you go ahead and change that Windows password to something more complex as soon as possible. So be sure to make yourself a note or just do it now. On our desktop, I want to point out a few things to you. In the upper left-hand corner, we have our Valerus VMS web client icon. This will launch us into the web client so that we can configure the system, we can look at video, we can interact with the VMS in many different ways. Underneath of that is a documents folder, different Valerus documents. There's also a welcome video that goes over some of the basics of a Valerus system. I want you to also notice that there is a Microsoft Edge icon here on the desktop. Now this system by default will use Internet Explorer 11, but we know that support for IE 11 is going to be ending around June of next year. So we've created a tool to help you migrate your system over to Microsoft Edge. You can download it from our website. It's called the Microsoft Edge Configuration Tool. Very simple. You run it and it will set everything up for you to use Microsoft Edge by default. It's actually Microsoft Edge in Internet Explorer mode, but that's going to have support all the way through at a minimum 2029. So let's go ahead and get started by launching our web client. And the first thing we're going to need to do is log into the Valerus system using the default username and password, which is lowercase admin 1234. And once again, just like for Windows, we're going to recommend that you change that password to something more complex as soon as possible, just like you did with Windows. Now, it's kind of obvious that the system is pre-configured, at least the application server is, or we would not have been able to log in. But if we want to confirm that our NVR is pre-configured and running, we can go to Configuration, Network Devices, NVRs. And we see that we have an NVR here, and its status is running. Also down in the Storage Definitions section, we can see both of our hard drives, and they are fully allocated here and here to this NVR. So the NVR is ready to go. Another way we can verify this is by going into the taskbar and looking for these two icons. The green icon is telling us that the application server is up and running, and the blue icon tells us that the NVR is up and running. If they weren't running, we wouldn't see the animation inside of the icons. Now at this point, you might jump right in to start adding cameras. But before we can add cameras, the one thing that we do have to do is license the system. So if we go to System and to Licensing, we're going to see that there is a pseudo license installed in the system. It's just a placeholder license, and we can see that it has no device capabilities whatsoever. We're going to need to apply the license activation key that you received via email when you ordered your system. Now we can do online activation or offline, but online is a whole lot easier than offline, where you have to use a different computer, put in the information, you get a file, you bring that file to this machine, you upload it, etc. Let's go ahead and do an online activation because it's ultimately a whole lot simpler. So we're going to need to put in our activation key. In my case, my activation key I received via email. I'm going to go ahead and type that in just as I received it as such. Now you do need to fill in any information that has an asterisk next to it, and it will help you when you call into support if you fill this in with valid information here. And for you dealers, make sure you put in your dealer information as well. Now, as long as you have something in those three areas, then you're ready to go ahead and click on Activate. At this point, it could take anywhere from 15 seconds to 3 or 4 minutes for the online activation process to take place. The few minutes that this takes, I know, can sometimes seem like hours, but basically all we're going to be doing is waiting for an information screen to pop up and tell us that our activation is complete. So here we have the message that says you have successfully activated the system. We can go ahead and click on OK, and notice it kicks us out, and we're going to have to log back in again. Once we do that, we can go ahead and check to make sure that our license key was applied. So we'll go back to Configuration, System, Licensing. My license activation key has been associated with my hardware ID, and now I have 16 core Vicon device licenses available for use. Now again, you might be ready to go ahead and start adding cameras, but you have to ask yourself one important question here. Is this system designed to be an all-in-one as it's currently configured, or did you want to use it as an NVR only system? Let's take a quick look at the steps to convert the system from all-in-one to NVR only. It's pretty simple. So I'm going to go ahead and close the web client. I'm going to go to Windows, and I'm going to scroll down and find the Valerus VMS launcher. And I'm going to go ahead and run it. And here we have some choices. Is this an all-in-one, an application server only, or a recording server only? So right now we're all-in-one. If we wanted to switch to recording server, simply tick this box, click Configure Now, the system will reconfigure and reboot, and it will be an NVR only. The application server will be taken out of the system, turned off, and no longer there. And then you'll simply add this NVR to your existing Valerus system. Now, we're not going to go ahead and do that now because we want to take a look at this as a full all-in-one system. So once again, I will launch the web client and go ahead and log in. Now I think we're ready to add some cameras. So I'm going to go to Configuration, Cameras and Devices. And what I'm hoping to find here is those cameras that are factory defaulted, plugged in to any of the 16 ports on the built-in PoE switch within this system. They should automatically receive IP addresses and be ready for me to add to the NVR for management purposes, recording purposes, etc. So I'm going to click on Add Discovered Devices, but here I get a very important first step. And this is where I'm going to set the credentials for my cameras as I add them to the system, so that later on, if I need to browse into a camera directly for some reason, I will know the username and the password. So the login name is set at all caps admin. You need to go ahead and set a password. And you want to be sure that you choose a password that you're not going to forget, but also make it complex enough that somebody's not going to figure it out. I'm going to make mine simple right now for these purposes of training and just set it to 1234. Now the system is going to show me all the discovered camera devices or on-VIF devices that it found on the network. And you'll notice earlier I said I added 3 cameras to the system, but you see 4 in the list. Well, here's the 3 cameras added to the system, and you can tell by their IP addresses, because if you remember from earlier in this training, the default DHCP address range for the built-in PoE switch is 172.17.17.1 through 200. So we have .1, .2, and .3. I have another device that's on a 192.168 network. That happens to be a device from a different manufacturer, and it's a video doorbell. So I'm not going to add that, of course, to my system. Actually, I can't because my license wouldn't support it. But I'm going to select the 3 cameras that I've added to the system, and I'm going to click on Add to NVR and close. I'm still going to get this successfully added message, and I'll go ahead and close this box out. And now I'm going to click on the plus sign, and my 3 cameras should be added to the system. I see 2 of them with a check mark, and there we go. There's the 3rd one now successfully added to the system. At this point, these cameras are recording 24/7 at their highest resolution and at their highest frame rate. Now, certainly we could go in and do advanced configuration and change that, set up alarms, etc. But what we're talking about is quick deployment. Just that fast, my cameras have been addressed. They've been added to the system. They're being managed by my NVR. They're being recorded by my NVR, and I'm ready to go. So now let's take a look at the monitoring section. We'll click on monitoring, and we'll look and see if we can't actually see our cameras. I'll go ahead and expand the ungrouped section because I haven't put these cameras in any camera groups at this point. And I'm going to go to this first camera right here, .1, and I'm going to drag it into the first tile. And there we go. I can see the camera. I'm going to take .2, and I'm going to put it in the second tile. And I'm going to grab .3, and I'm going to put it into the third tile. And there we go. We have video from all 3 cameras. Now, obviously you can see me. I'm waving to you here. And you might say to yourself, wait a minute, George, that looks like the PoE NVR system set up right there, but yet you're sitting over here behind your desk. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to be able to show you the actual desktop from the PoE NVR. So I'm actually connected to it via a remote desktop session instead of just using the Valerus web client to make those connections, because then you wouldn't see the actual desktop. When it comes to applications, the question really isn't where does it fit, The question is, where doesn't it fit? Because you could put this system anywhere you would put an NVR today. But what you're going to get is the perfect standalone system for a small to medium business. Now, in the case of an existing Valerus system, if you have, say, an off-site location and you just need an NVR there, well, you can convert this to NVR only. And it's also great where you need a compact installation. Now, as far as the actual applications, the list is very, very wide. From retailers like clothing stores or furniture stores, grocery stores, be it a small bodega or a major grocery chain. How about a liquor store or an antique shop? When it comes to dining locations, you could go anywhere, like pizza shops, sushi bars, and more. How about a car repair facility, all the way up to and including car dealerships? How about gas stations? What about municipal parks and playgrounds, or entertainment venues like bowling alleys, or the golf course pro shop, along with the cart storage facilities? Police and sheriff stations, along with jails and prisons as well. Office buildings, hotels and motels, residential neighborhoods or large estates, RV or boat storage areas, or how about a whole marina? The list goes on and on. Now let's go ahead and summarize what we've covered today, and we'll do it by turning it into a value proposition. The PoE NVR is pre-configured for quick and easy installation. It comes with a 16-channel core license for Vicon IP cameras, and that's included in the purchase price. It is expandable up to 70 cameras or 190 megabits per second of throughput to drive, whichever one comes first. It provides DHCP addressing for the cameras connected to the 16 built-in PoE ports, which basically makes it a plug-and-play system. It is easily reconfigurable to NVR only mode for addition to existing Valerus installations. And you can also upgrade the license to Pro or Enterprise level via system licensing, just like any other Valerus system. And remember, we have no support fees or recurring costs, and we do offer an upgrade protection plan. Thank you for watching today's presentation, and be sure to click on subscribe as well as the alarm bell icon so that you'll be informed of all new videos posted to our YouTube channel.